Hey guys, give me 1 second to get everything started up here. I'm gonna go ahead and invite our co-host Siu Feng. Oh, here we go, requesting. And hello. Oh, hi. Hi,
Hi.
Josey.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
that's good.
you're a little quiet, but I can hear you. Maybe that's just my headphones, Josey. All right, looks like people are logging on. So this is great. This is the fastest we've ever got, like all three people onto the call, like at the start of the call. So I'm super stoked about that. Thank you both for being here. I'm so excited. I'm so sorry that we had to reschedule this chat. But I'm just glad that we were able to make it happen because Siu Feng and I both are so excited to talk to you, and we have so many questions that we want to ask you. So thank you for your time already, just like in
Thank you for
advance.
having me on here.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself and the two other people on the call for those of you who haven't joined us here before. So my name's Nat. I'm the Assistant Executive Director of the IATBP. And co-hosting with me is Siu Feng, who is our newest latest addition to our board and also an ambassador for the IATBP. And a lot of amazing other things, IFBB competitor, posing coach, artist, just like all around badass. And Josey, so Josey, who's joining us today, is a 48-year-old trans female bodybuilder and fitness model who is from Lenoir City, Tennessee. And I have here in your bio that you work for the federal government at a nuclear plant in Spring City in Tennessee. But on the side, you do like bodybuilding and
Yeah,
fitness
yeah.
and modeling shows and stuff. Um, and for those of you who don't know, who haven't been following us for a long time, Josie was actually the first trans woman athlete to compete in the IATVP in the bodybuilding. And she's come to every single in-person competition that we've had ever since then in 2019. Um, and until last year, you were competing pretty much by yourself up there. So you're kind of our reigning champion. We call you the sometimes jokingly like the queen of ITBP bodybuilding because you always take the crown. But we're excited because we hope having a chat with you will hopefully encourage other trans women to come in and compete as well.
Yes,
So
yes.
so thank you so much again for being here. Um, okay, so I guess do you want to kick off the conversation, Sifung, or do we want to kind of mention the ITBP and like our competition and everything, just for those who are here at the beginning, but maybe not at the end?
Yeah, I think beginning and the end.
Okay, yeah. So for just those of you guys that don't know that are logging on right now, so we are a competitive bodybuilding and powerlifting organization, and we put on competitions that center trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming athletes every year. And this year, our competition is going to be on November 18th. It's a bodybuilding show and powerlifting meet. And there's still plenty of time to join us. So I'm assuming Josie will hopefully be with us this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to join her and the other athletes that have been posting saying that they're going to come, there's still plenty of time to register. If you go on our account, there's actually a post right at the top pin there that shows you how to go on our website, become a member, and then register to compete. And then if you aren't an athlete, or if you are an athlete but you're not ready to compete yet, you can actually still become a member, and it's only $49 a year, and that like small payment basically allows us to keep putting on these competitions and create that space for these athletes every year, which is super important. So I highly encourage you to go check out that post after the chat and become a member and hopefully register to compete as well if you're an athlete and want to compete. So just a little plug there for us. But to go ahead and kick off the conversation, since we don't have like a lot of time, we wanted to go ahead and start, Josie, by getting into kind of your history with lifting a little bit. Siu Feng kind of knows already because I think they've interviewed you before.
Yeah.
So they're a little familiar with your story, but I'm not as familiar. So I would like to know basically how you got into lifting and bodybuilding specifically, and what got you interested from that point in actually competing and stepping on stage.
This is how it all really began, even with bodybuilding. When I was a kid, I was like big into Arnold Schwarzenegger and like Conan the Barbarian. I'd never seen Pumping Iron or nothing like that. Conan the Barbarian was the thing for me. And so after high school, I played sports in high school. And then after high school, I had actually went through a bad breakup. And so it's like, at the time I weighed probably $119, you know, and so I was real tiny, frail bodied. And so, I run into one of my high school graduate friends who was a bodybuilder. And I did not know about competitive bodybuilding actually being a local thing or anything like that. And so he was like bundled up. And I like to tell this story because he was like my age. We were like, 19 years old, almost 20 years old. And he had won Mr. Chattanooga actually. And was right out of being 19, 20 years old. But he was bundled up, like with sweats on and everything. And I bumped into him at the mall, and I started noticing he had like competition and tan up to his face, and on his hands. And I was like, what in the world is he doing? I didn't know what that was. And so like I was like, what are you doing, dude? And he's like, bodybuilder. And I'm like, a what? Like that. And then so it's like he started explaining how he had dieted and everything else, and he pulls his shirt up and shows me his abs. And they were like chiseled, six-pack, beautiful abs. And I'm like, oh my God. And like I instantly, from that moment, I asked him, I was like, can you help me do this? And so that's actually the person that got me into wanting to be a bodybuilder, other than the prior things that fed into it, from my childhood on up. But he's actually the individual that was responsible for making me want to take the effort to train with him and get into shape and to be a competitive bodybuilder.
Yeah, that's a really, really great story, right? And I think, for me, it's as well, like, it reminds me so much. I started to see, I first saw on the news, there was a power lifter when I was like a female power lifter who was like breaking world records or something at around like 16, 17. And 18 was the year when I first thought maybe I should get more muscles. And so I just signed up, a YMCA type of gym in Hong Kong, and then start doing random lifting. And I was really hardworking. Like I trained 6 times a week, every day, at least an hour, without really knowing what I was actually doing. So it reminds me so much, right? How we often, I know you also do other sports later on in your journey, right? But how these, the first instincts about, about bodybuilding, the first encounter, right, with lifting and bodybuilding that actually stays with us. And then as we move on to other sports, we eventually comes back to this first sport that we fell in love with. So I think that was really a beautiful story. And we also ask every guest that comes to our fireside chat, in how sports itself, right, help you realize that you are a trans person. Oh, can you hear me?
Can you hear us, Joseph?
It's really quiet. I can't. I'm having a hard time.
Oh, that's weird.
Can you hear me now?
Let me try the volume. I'm trying to see. It's not my.
I can hear you, Siu Feng. It might be her volume.
Oh,
okay.
Yes.
Let's try it again then. What was the question?
Yes, I will. So can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So basically, what we ask for every guest that come to our fireside chat is how the sports itself, right, help you realize that you are a trans person.
Or like how does your sports journey kind of coincide with like your trans journey? Like how do they influence each other?
Okay, yeah, because I started out bodybuilding as a male, and I did it for years. But now here's the catch, and this is what a lot of people don't understand. I knew I was transgender from an early age. I knew about 4 years old, I knew I was transgender. But the thing about it was I used sports and everything else to try to hide that. And one of the things I noticed that really triggered it was for fitness and modeling was probably when I was a sophomore in high school. Now, this is what's funny about my whole situation. When I was a sophomore in high school, I had a biology assignment on muscles. And I'd never looked at a Flex magazine or nothing like that before in my life. And so even though I did weight training in high school and everything else, I didn't really get into bodybuilding then or nothing like that. But when I was actually researching on muscles for a biology report, I bought a Flex magazine to look through them. And when I seen like the male bodybuilders, you know, they were massive and huge. But the thing about it was my attention drawn to the female bodybuilders and the female fitness. Well, they didn't have figure division. It was just fitness and bodybuilding girls. And I thought that was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And that's what I wanted to look like. And so, like, I struggled with that from that point on with the rest of my, you know, till even as a male bodybuilder, because I wanted to have more of a feminine appearance on stage than I did a masculine and be huge and massive deep down. But I always tried to hide the fact that I was transgender. And as I progressed and struggled with being transgender, bodybuilding is what led me back to be feeling comfortable to be open about who I really was. If it wasn't for bodybuilding, I wouldn't have come out when I did. Because when I come out, it was 2017. And I'd held this in for 44 years, is the way I look at it. And when I walked away from men's bodybuilding, I went into cage fighting. I did that. I did some professional wrestling and professional bull riding. I was an extreme athlete. And when I finally decided that I was not going to run no more and I transitioned, the first thing that come to mind for me was, what can I do and still be an active athlete and be transgender? Will this end any chance of me being an athlete anymore? Will I have hobbies? What's going to happen to me? Will I be ostracized? You know, and so that was a big mental block for me at the time when I was, you know, coming out, because I was looking at how I was going to change my whole universe. And so I was sitting and thinking, what's something I could really do? What can I go back to doing for a sport that I have for a passion? Because I don't want to fight no more. I was too old to do that anymore. And like the other stuff. And so I went back to my first love, which was bodybuilding. And so I started Googling transgender bodybuilding. And that's when I found my IATBP. And that's when I reached out and actually made contact and tried to find out if there was, you know, women competitors. And so that's what led me back into bodybuilding. And actually when I come out, it was hard to come out because of my job situation, family, friends at my age, especially being older like I was, and coming from a different, you know, background of age group and where I was born and raised in the area I was, you know, my upbringing. It's a really harsh, rural, backwards area, so to speak. And so bodybuilding basically saved my life. It really did. I was in a very dark place.
Yeah, something that, you know, something that we actually have discussed slightly before when I did the interview with you, right? So I told you that I realized that, you know, your journey, your story, as well as like, you know, like Janae's stories, actually is kind of similar in a sense that both of you actually think of like, you know, going into like strength sports or even extreme sports, right? And then, you know, become super masculine in a sense, right? In order to hide the desire of transition, the desire of wanting to be a woman, right?
Yeah.
So do you?
For those listeners who don't know, Sifung's talking about Janae Marie Kroc, the powerlifter, bodybuilder, incredible transgender, queer, and trans woman athlete. And she's also an IATBP judge. So yeah, very similar. I agree. Sifung and I were talking about this beforehand. It seems like a very common experience that you both shared.
And
so,
well,
sorry, I just had to cut in.
That was the thing with her. And when I got to meet her in Atlanta, that was like one of the first things I said to her was how much she inspired me to do what I do now, because I related so much to watching the show on Netflix, the documentary. And my wife, she said, there's this show that you got to watch on Netflix. And I think you really need to watch it because it's so much like your story, your background. And I think it's important that you watch something like this. And it really showed me I wasn't alone in a lot of ways. And so it really helped me a lot. And so that was the thing. I idolized her.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting because I was also thinking a lot about, in parallel to like trans masculine folks, right? Their experiences with sports is kind of like, of course, there's also a lot of diversity, right? But for example, me, myself, like I started with sports that is more endurance based, because society doesn't really like, so-called women to actually engage in sports that are very masculine, like strength sports or extreme sports, right? So you start with like mild sports, but I eventually move up and realize that, okay, I actually like strength sports more. And then, we have to break a lot of, as a female body person, you also have to break a lot of barriers, right, in sports itself, in order to, to actually, to practice and compete, right, in a so-called more masculine sport, because it is a more about strength, about more extreme in a sense. So I think, that was very interesting to me, like how trans mas and trans femme, athletes actually have a very different way of understanding, and, experiencing sports itself. So, yeah, I think that was just a very interesting comparison. Great. So you mentioned, now I'm looking into our questions. We have so many questions.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We have probably the longest list of questions for any chat that we've had.
I'll answer what I can,
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. You can also tell us what we didn't, anything you want to tell us about. But yes, so you actually does mention a little bit more of how you found out that you discover IATBP and then realize that, okay, I am going to, talk to Bucky, so that, you will know whether there will be women, divisions, right?
Yeah.
And so how was your experience, in competing in IATBP, like over the past few years?
Oh my God, this is what, like, I was quoted like in the New York Post on saying this, because I said just blatantly, I felt like I was born again. It was like being born again. And I say it because I never felt such a joyous freedom feeling and getting to be who I really was meant to be my whole entire life that had been suppressed. And like, even though I was successful as a male bodybuilder, I qualified for the junior nationals twice. And even though I was still, doing what I was doing, I was not content. I was not happy. I knew that wasn't really who I was supposed to be. But when I walked on stage, I took roughly a 10-year break from bodybuilding. And when I come back as a female. And so the thing is I was terrified. Even though it was a transgender bodybuilding federation, I was still terrified. This was a new experience. Walking in heels and a bikini in front of an audience was a terrifying thought. And so I'm like, so but actually, I've never felt better and more comfortable in my entire life because it wasn't the same. In bodybuilding, it can be a very mean. Everybody loves everybody, but everybody's so competitive and backstabbing. I hate to say it like that, but it's true. Bodybuilders are so two-faced and backstabbing, and they get jealous of each other. Even though we love each other, it's one of those family relationships where, you know, you'll sit there and you'll love them to their face. Not God blame it, I can't stand that. They got this or they got that. Why can't I be? You know, why can't I have that?
Yeah.
My arms look that good, you know, and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, it was like the first experience of my life where I walked on a stage and felt welcomed and comfortable, and most of all, safe. Just a safe environment that made me feel like I could just be who I wanted to be for a minute and a half. I owned the world, and that was the greatest feeling I've ever felt in the world. And it's been like that every year.
Is that like what you mean when you say, because you said that you felt like you'd been reborn?
Yes.
And
Yes,
actually our executive director has quoted that a lot. Like, he's always like, man, like every time I think about Josey saying that, like it gets me emotional, you know, because it means so much to him. So can you like talk a little bit more about that? Like, what does that like mean? You felt like you were reborn?
Sort of like, I mean, the best way to describe it, and this is the easiest way to describe it, is like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, literally right there on stage. You know, when I walked on that stage, I shined and I felt it, and I knew who I was supposed to be, and I can't make up for back time that I lost. All I can do is live in the moment and for tomorrow. And so even though I do resent, you know, my situation that I did not come out sooner in life for specific reasons, I will not neglect the next moment in my life. I'm always going to enjoy every moment I got. And if that was the thing, is when I walked on stage for the first time, that was like my defining moment of when I become a real person. I felt like it was I can't describe the feelings. It literally makes you want to cry with joy. It really does. And it was very emotional for me to compete my first time on stage, and I'll never forget that. That was a highlight of my life, and it always will be. And the IATBP made that happen. And you know, like I said, I don't know what I'd have done if it wasn't for that moment, because that moment set my pace and defined me for who I am now. It really helped define me for who I am now.
That is so beautifully said. I think every time you tell us about, you know, that part, you know, that you feel reborn, that part that you feel shining in yourself, right, on stage, always touches me a lot. And I think one thing that I really love about IATBP is that every time, you know, each competitor, when they first get on stage, we will actually introduce them and introduce their story and their journey. And I think that part is actually very valuable, that you don't often see, well, I barely see in any mainstream competitions, right? I mean, I'm sure not only bodybuilding, but, you know, other mainstream competition organizations do not really, you know, they take competitors as customers rather than really as people, right? That value their own personal story. And I think that is what IATBP can provide, you know, as a safe space, right? So because safe space is not just, you know, it's not just about, okay, having a community itself, right? Having a community, of course, is important, but then we value each one's like personal experience and personal story. And then we make sure your voice will be heard, you know, through your posing, like, through you showcasing your physique, through you telling us your own like journey. And I think that is what is most valuable. And yeah, and so a follow-up is that I know you have told us a little bit about, you know, you have also been after, you know, your first encounter with bodybuilding at 18, 19 years old, right? And then you switch to other sports like cage fighting and other, you call them extreme sports, right? So how do you think that experience in contrast with your experience in IATBP, like those sporting experiences in particular?
To me, those were adrenaline-based sports. to make me feel good at the time, almost like I guess you could say it was like a pacifier. When you're for a baby, when a baby's crying, you give them a pacifier to get them to quit crying. So it's like for me, extreme sports was an adrenaline rush to make me forget and take my mind off of the fact that I'm transgender and I'm still not doing what I need to do in my life. Even though I loved the sports, I loved everything I was doing. I enjoyed it highly and I loved it. It was still like a Band-Aid that needed to be pulled off. And that was the thing, was when I finally got tired of I run out of extreme sports to try because I was breaking my body and tearing it up. And so I wasn't healing, and I couldn't do that no more. I about killed myself snowboarding. And and it's like, I still love snowboarding. I'm going to do it again. But literally, I mean, I was beating myself up trying to ride bulls and stuff like that, and breaking bones. And it's like, there comes a point in time where you got to realize, it's like, I'm not getting no younger, and I'm still in denial of this person that's inside of me begging to let them out. And I'm still keeping it, tucked down inside and holding the life from living. And so when I finally broke that barrier to come out, that was, like I said, if the IATBP helped save my life, because I was in such a depression state of mind. I had failed relationships, failed marriages. When I would try to even talk about the fact that I was transgender, it was shot down. It was not even listened to. It was an absolute, I couldn't even discuss it. And so when I finally broke that barrier, I was left finally not knowing which way to go. And so I was just like, what am I going to do? And what can I do to, I guess, have that happy feeling again about myself and to build myself back up? And I needed that lift. I needed to feel like there was something for me that, that I could still do and like be confident in myself. I lacked confidence. But after I'd done all this stuff, when I came out, it was like my confidence level started over at ground zero. And everybody's like, well, you're a strong person for doing what you're doing. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't feel like a strong person at the moment. I feel like the world's stacked against me. And so I wanted to be confident. And so that's why I chose to go back into bodybuilding. The moment I seen that there was a organization for people like me, I got so excited, so happy, because I'm like, this is the sign I needed. It was almost like a light shined down. And it was like, ta-da, this is your moment. You need to seize this moment. Go for this. This is not just by coincidence. This is a sign. Why was I in bodybuilding to begin with? It led me to where I'm at now.
Again, it's so beautiful. I don't know how to explain that. It's just so beautifully, said. Everything that you said. Now I want to actually turn to something that is more about the competition itself, right? Mm-hmm. So I wasn't here yet, but as far as I know, when IATBP first has a fan category, we only had bodybuilding category, and as far as I know, you help actually push, right, to have a bikini category, right? So for you, why is it important to have a bikini category, especially like for trans femme athletes?
Well, I'm going to be honest. When I reach out, I didn't know what to expect. And I know, being transgender female, I did not know what the divisions would even be. And so the reason I went with bikini and pushed for bikini, I know that I didn't want to be some massive muscle monster on stage, but also I wanted to display the femininity with the muscle both. And I thought it's a beautiful package. And I've always thought it's beautiful, even when I was younger and I seen girls in the magazines, the female bodybuilders. And so it's like the bikini division was something I'd actually researched online and seen what the girls, how they were built, the muscle tone, the muscle structure, and their physiques were beautiful. And so it was a perfect display. And with my build and my muscle tone, I was just like, I will try the bikini division. And then as I progressed, I wanted to do more physique and bodybuilding again. So it's like, I like doing both because honest to God, after the first time of the IATBP, I went on up into more of the bodybuilding look. And because I just wanted to put more muscle, and I like the feminine muscle, the hard and feminine muscle. And it was just like, it was more of a challenge to pack on some more muscle mass and cut muscle. And I like the feel of the way it feels on my body. I really do. And so it's like, if I want to starve down, diet down harder, I can do, more of a bikini look. But I have a bodybuilder build. And so I'm more comfortable with being having a more bodybuilder physique. So it's like, the reason why I really did bikini again is because I did not want to see it die. I don't want to see it go away. And as long as somebody's willing to put in the work and to keep showing up, it'll stay alive till I can encourage more people to come out and participate and compete. And so it's like, I don't want to see this go. I don't want to see women's division go away. And I think if it means having to carry the torch, somebody's got to do it. I'm bringing a package every year. I try to have my package looking better each competition. I try to come in better conditioned each competition. And so that's the thing is, it ain't like I'm just getting up there, going through a routine. I take it serious. I train hard. I diet hard. And it's me versus me to improve every season. I want to improve more and more and more. But my biggest concern is I want others to come out and compete and get involved, other female bodybuilders, bikini competitors. I would love to see it to the point where it's like a NPC show where you have bikini division, wellness division, bodybuilding or physique, have more divisions for the women, that there's enough women competitors, that there's something for each body structure. Because like I understand, and like me and my wife's talked about this, not all trans women want to be muscular. They don't want to be big and muscular. They don't like that. It's only a certain few like me that likes the way it feels and likes the way it looks on me. It fits me. And I'm confident like that. That's the way I like to feel. But for the ones that don't want to be, large and muscular, that's what your bikini division is, more for a slender, harder toned body, and not without all the mass. So that's the thing, is I want to encourage other trans girls that they can be a bikini competitor without putting on a lot of mass, and that if they wanted to, they can go up to bodybuilding, or they can be a bikini competitor. And if there's enough of it, there can be wellness divisions for the in-between, or what they call a figure. I think it's a figure division in the NPC. But I would love to see enough female competitors come out that they fit all body structures, just like an NPC show.
I think you actually, sorry, Stefan, I didn't know if you were going to say anything. I think you actually answered one of my questions kind of unintentionally, which is like the fact that you keep coming back, right? Like other athletes, we have a lot of athletes come through and they'll compete once, and regardless of whether they win or not, a lot of them will have kind of the same story that you have. Like, this was a once in a lifetime experience. It was, an incredible moment where I kind of like felt like this new realization about myself, or, felt reborn or whatever. Like, I'll hear, them say that as they leave the competition or when they post on Instagram afterward. But then a lot of them don't come back the next year, right? And you come back every year. Oh, sorry, I was going to ask you actually, like, why do you keep coming back every year? And I think you kind of like got to that, right? Yeah. Like, it's because you want to make sure that there's always a trans woman in that competition, and people see that there's trans women in the competition, right?
Exactly. That's it's so important that somebody keeps this going on and tries to build it. I mean, if you look at the history of bodybuilding, it started in circus tents on little tiny stages and podiums. That's where bodybuilding began. So it's nothing new to, be start from the ground and work your way up. So it's like, somebody's got to keep the torch going, and somebody's got to keep getting the word out there that we are real, we exist. This is our moment to shine and be confident in ourselves. And that's one of the biggest things I feel like that with the trans bodybuilding is that it gives you such a awesome feeling to step out there and say, we're real. We are here and we're for real. We're not going anywhere. I love that fact that to stand up for who I am and to, show who I am. And that to me, that's empowering. That's so empowering. And that's confidence right there. That builds confidence, and that's empowering.
Right. I'm assuming based on how you're talking that means that if a bunch of trans women came and competed and somebody actually took your crown, that you wouldn't be bitter about it, right? Like you would love to have lots of women come.
Not at all. I would eventually like to be a judge, if that tells you anything.
Hell yeah.
But to me, I'm getting older. I'm 48 years old. I want to keep competing. But honest to God, it would tickle me with joy to have a more bigger participation and somebody take me out like that. I would love it because that's the way it should be. To me, it's like being the trans Miss Olympia, so to speak. I'm going to win as many times in a row as somebody knocks me off the pedestal. Kind of like a Ronnie Coleman or Corey Everson or, anybody like that in pro bodybuilding. This is our Olympia, so to speak. This is our Mr. Olympia competition for transgender. And that's what I tell everybody. I tell everybody I'm the trans Miss Olympia right now. The defending trans Miss Olympia. So I'm happy. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. But that's my ultimate dream is to build this up till somebody comes in and we get enough participation. I'd love for somebody to come in and beat me.
Yes, that is for sure. And I think that's what we are trying to do, all this fireside chat, right? Trying to increase our exposure as well, right? And to invite people like you, right, to come speak with us so that, more people will know about the competition and know how important it is, right, to maintain a safe and inclusive space, right, for, trans and non-binary folks to be able to compete, right? And as you said, right, coming back every year, is really, making a statement that, I am here and you're not going to take me out. Right? And I think that is
putting it out there like somebody come beat me, so bring it on.
Right.
So, I mean,
yes.
We are competitive by nature. People are competitive by nature. And this still is a sport. And this is a contest. And so there's got to be winners and there's got to be second places and there's got to be people that don't place. But it takes all of us to make a show happen. And that's the key thing is we got to have bodies on stage to have a show. And so we need that participation.
Yes, and that's what we are working very hard on, right? By bringing in more competitors and spectators to our show. And hopefully, one day you will see, we will be able to have like multiple divisions in each category. Like this is also our vision to be able to have not only bikini and bodybuilding in the femme category, but also maybe, as you said, figure, wellness, or even, I don't know, fitness where you can do like
if it gets to that point, but I won't be doing that. I'll break something.
Yeah, that would be so cool. But as you said, right, as a competitive athlete yourself, what are your upcoming plans? I know you're coming back to the IATBP to compete. Are you planning to also compete in other like more mainstream organizations? Looking forward to your own competitive career, what are your upcoming plans?
My last adventure, I modeled on the Arnold stage. I got to go to the Arnold Classic. And
saw that.
Up on the
you
Arnold
look so
stage.
great.
And so I was technically the first transgender bodybuilder athlete to get to walk across the Arnold stage. So that was a milestone for me to get to do that, and that was like the highlight of my career so far. Of big things I've gotten to do. But I'm definitely going to continue. I'm going to do the Arnold again in the spring when it comes back around. But I'm actually wanting to go on into the NPC and try to compete in female bodybuilding if I can be accepted. I don't know how that's going to work, but I would love to have the opportunity to compete for the Tennessee State next year, and possibly do the amateur Arnold too. Wow. Since I've already modeled in it, I would love to do the amateur Arnold. And there's a Paul Dillette Bodybuilding Federation that it's actually trans inclusive. There's another professional trans athlete, female bodybuilder in it. And I've been in contact with some of the trainers and stuff, and they've encouraged me to actually come to that. I think it's WBBF or something like that. And I wanted to actually branch out and do their show when they have it in Atlanta probably next year.
Yeah, that would be so great to see, mainstream like bodybuilding, federations that are trying to be more trans inclusive. I think that is also very important, right? Apart from having like organizations like ourselves, right, that really encourage, people who are trans and non-binary to be able to step on stage. I think, hand in hand, we also require and we also want like mainstream competitions to actually be able to open up, categories like for trans people to compete. And I think that is so important. And hopefully, you can be one of those very first trans athletes to step on, you step on the Arnolds already, but, competing in the, competing at the Arnolds, right, as a, women athlete or women in the women's category. I think that would be so awesome. Maybe I will be on stage with you one day, hopefully. Well, also compete in the women's category.
You'll be too old.
Well, then you are in the Masters, and you have to wait for me.
I'll wait for you.
Yeah, and I think, time flies, and it comes to our, actually we asked most of the questions, so we did a really good job. We have how many questions? Like 13 questions. But yeah, so one of these like very important questions that we always want to hear from our guests is that, right, especially like you, right, as a trans femme, trans woman athlete, we feel like a lot of trans women themselves, they feel they are hesitant, right, to step on stage because of various factors, right? One of these factors are like, they are not feeling safe, right? They are not feeling seen, right? Or they are worried about, as you said, whether I can just be myself in that 1.5 minutes, without being, judged, right, afterwards, right, or during your performance on stage. So, and of course, as we mentioned for the last 40 minutes, we really want to have more trans femme athletes, right, to compete in our competition. And so what do you think you would want to tell other trans women or trans femme folks who is really, struggling and trying to think whether we're or considering, right, competing? So what would you tell them? What would you like to tell them for those who might be, thinking about competing for the first time? What would your advice be?
My advice is basically like what happened to me. Don't panic. Don't try to take your time and breathe. And if you're considering it, do the diet, do the work, bring your package, bring your body, and just go for it. I mean, I'm telling you right now, is the best way to describe it is this is the most comfortable space to really experience the freedom of being transgender female. I mean, for all the ones that are scared, the ones that are nervous, the ones, and I was there. I was scared and I was nervous too. That was the thing about it. And so this is such a barrier breaker on confidence to a whole nother level of with also being transgender, because of that whole concept of trying to be who you really are. And so, like, the way I've had people contact me on Instagram and ask me, and they said they've been interested in competing and everything else. And I tell them, I said, come do the show, come to Atlanta, save your money, do whatever you got to do, but come start with our show. I try to promote our show, because when you go, a lot of people's like, well, I don't want to put myself in a box and just limit myself. I'm like, you ain't putting yourself in a box. You're building confidence is what you're going to do. You're setting yourself up to go to another show and keep doing more shows. But you need to have that familiarity, that comfort zone is very crucially important if you're going to step on stage and compete. And from somebody that's done it as a male for years in big shows, in national qualifier shows, that's why I love that atmosphere. I love that atmosphere, that welcoming spirit of everybody's supportive of you. Everybody's body's different. Everybody looks different, but it don't take away from the fact that you worked hard to get to where you're at. A lot of your mainstream bodybuilding don't care about that. They don't care about who you are or your story. This is a whole nother experience in fitness and bodybuilding that you need to experience. If you're a transgender athlete, you need to experience this for your own personal mental stability, your spiritual stability, your whole wellness. It is, I mean, without a doubt, it's one of the greatest feelings you're ever going to feel. And it's also tied in with the sport you're wanting to be in and take part of, which is bodybuilding. What better scenario can you put yourself in than a great, safe, friendly, loving, accepting environment with the sport that you love and are passionate about? It's perfect. It's win-win.
Right. So for people who are on the fence, I mean, as trans women especially, you're saying, like, basically it may feel like you're taking this huge leap and it may be really scary, but actually doing the show is going to help you kind of break through those fears and anxieties and actually propel you to even do more outside of the competition with your, not just sports, but with your life in general.
Your life, and it helps you with your life. It helps you go on and do other things besides just a contest. It's so building in like I said, it builds confidence so much. It's the confidence level you will have is unbelievable.
And I love what you said, right? And I also think that, you know, as a competitive athlete myself as well, every time I compete on stage as a bodybuilder, each time I had a more nuanced understanding of my body. And in the process, you know, I think my spiritual well-being is actually grown as well. And I think the more, I mean, a lot of times as a trans and non-binary person, we're so afraid of our body, right? So we don't want to really connect with our body. And I think the training of bodybuilding itself and, and how bodybuilding itself forces you to actually display the body. And, you know, that is for a lot of people displaying your vulnerability, right, to a whole bunch of strangers off stage, right? Yeah. But I think once you can overcome that, it becomes so powerful because you own your body and you understand more about how your body works, how your body connects, and then you yourself also connect with your whole being as well. And I think for me, that's really the beauty of bodybuilding. Aside from, the adrenalines as well, competing on stage and then wanting to pose, and to look aesthetically good, right? So I think, as for those who are really nervous about competing and not sure if I have the best physique, whether I'm lean enough, whether I'm conditioned enough, or whether I have those like muscles, groups, all attached to my body, my advice is really, just come and enjoy the stage, and then you will know your way on how to get better. Yeah. Because as bodybuilders, we're never really satisfied about how we look. And I think that's a good thing because, that means that there is always room for improvement and there's always room to better yourself, right? And I think that's a very beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think I have one kind of like last follow-up question to that, and it's in regards to competing specifically, which is I think this is an insight that you might have because you are the first trans woman that we've been able to have a fireside chat with. That's a bodybuilder, right? In regards to competing, before you stepped on stage, is there any advice that you like would like to give people, especially trans women who want to be bodybuilders or bikini competitors, that you wish you had known before you competed, either way back in the day or like before you competed with the IATBP? Like, what are you like, damn, like I wish I like that it would have helped for me to know that before, you know?
Uh, wow.
If there's
That's a tough
nothing,
one
that's
because I look
cool
back at my
too.
whole
But,
bodybuilding career.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's like well, I'll be honest. There's nothing that's going to prepare you 100%. It's all trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think you do come in and you're ready to go, you'll find out quickly there's always room for improvement. You're never going to be satisfied. So just have that in your head. No matter how good you look, you're never going to be satisfied with it. You're always going to want to work to improve and to keep improving. So I would say the big thing that I found out before I walked on stage, like the first time I ever competed on stage, I didn't manipulate my water. And I'll be honest, I looked like a little swelled at the night show. I come in pre-judging and I was cut and I didn't have the greatest abs, but I had them. They were there. And so, but this is my first time ever on a bodybuilding stage. You got to remember this. I went textbook clean diet. Didn't know nothing what I was doing. Went a textbook clean diet. And so I went in to do my first show and I tried to do I think it was a 48-hour or 24-hour water cut for the pre-judging.
Wow.
As soon as that was over, I just started guzzling. Well, I went into the night show and I looked like a tick gonna pop. And so that is a key. That's one of the things for bodybuilding. I feel like a lot of people need to make sure that when they put all that work and that hard work into dieting, make sure the key thing is to study your sodium, study your potassium, study your water, to manipulate your water, to keep your physique and know exactly, do a practice run like so many weeks out before your competition and pretend that weekend coming up is your show and manipulate your water like you're going into a contest and see how your body looks and learn your body a few weeks, how it's going to react a few weeks prior to your show. And that way you get a test run of how you would kind of idea your water, how you need to manipulate your water, because all that hard work goes out the window if you don't manipulate your water right. So that's my biggest thing to anybody that's stepping on stage is prepping for a show would be your water is a key major factor.
That's a really good tip, actually. We haven't had anyone mention that on the chat before, and I feel like people who haven't competed before don't actually know that kind of stuff matters in that like week leading up to the competition, basically.
That's my biggest thing. I've lost shows because of that. I've had second place, should have won, should have possibly been first place in national qualifiers, and lost them because of water. Literally, water weight beat me. And so if I'd have known the secrets and the manipulation of the water process, I could have done so much better. So it's like, I look back at a lot of that now and I'm like, darn it, why didn't I know what I know now? And still, it goes with learning your body too. If you do this so much, you know what your body can and can't do. You know how your body's going to react before you do it. So it's almost like I always like to compare our bodies as bodybuilders to European sports cars, race cars. Yeah. Everything is precision. Everything is precise and ready for race day. And so it's like, exactly what kind of fuel you're running on, the best types of all the ingredients. Your body is a machine, literally. It's like a fine-tuned, high-performance machine. And so you got to watch what you put into it. You got to watch how much you put into it. And the least little thing can mess it up. And then you not have your best performance.
Yeah, and I think that is so right because the peak week is actually, what changes you. I mean, I've seen a lot of athletes actually, go through a really good prep season where they become really, striated and conditioned, and then they just mess up with the peak week. And I would say apart from water, the carb loading is also like, in the last few days
Yes.
it goes hand in hand with water. And I think, if you are inexperienced, I do, and if you have resources, I always advise people to hire a coach, right, to help you go through, all those necessary processes, because, having someone to look after you, it will make you much easier. It will make the whole process much easier. But still, it's always a try and error. No one gets. I mean, I always feel like, for example, myself, I always get more flat on stage, because I was afraid to load enough carbs. Like I was afraid to overload, right, my carbohydrates.
Yes.
And then I end up looking really flat. And when I compete against, women who are much bigger and fuller, I always lose to the size, right? Because my muscles are not full enough. So I think apart from water, the carbohydrates loading is also something that, that you have to really, pay attention to, do some researches, and then at the same time, we all actually, to a certain extent, we all experiment with our body. Because even if you have a coach, right, the persons still have to work with you for a few times before they know how to work with your body specifically. So it's still a try and error thing. So, give yourself time and also space, right, to experiment with those processes. And don't be too, nervous about it, for the first show, I would say. You are not going to be perfect for your first show, but then you can step up and try at least. Yeah.
Get your feet wet. The key thing is getting in there, try it, do the work, see where you're at, and that's your ground zero. And you start building from there. You start learning the process, and you progress, and you make better progress from then on out. Every time you show up on a stage, you'll be better each time.
Yes, and I think so. So for our audiences who are here with us right now, you feel free to ask questions if you have any to Josey. In the meantime, is there a question already, Nat?
Well, actually, we had somebody submit a question in the comments before, like a week ago. So
yes.
I do have a question for Josey. It's actually from Sam. He competed in our bodybuilding show this last year in 2022. And I believe the heavyweight division, I think. And his question was, basically he says that he's 60 years old, and his biggest problem is building his chest, like upper, middle, and lower, just like struggles with pec growth. And his question was basically, what are your kind of more general tips, aside from just like train your chest regularly, what are your general tips for improving your pecs and making your chest generally look more defined? That was his question to you.
For me, for chest, this is what I do for my chest. I don't use barbells. I use dumbbells only. And the reason why I do dumbbells for me is I do butterflies, incline presses, flat back presses, and I do 100 push-ups with every chest workout session. I do 100 push-ups. And the reason I do what I do is because it's the free weights sculpt and shape the muscle and give it the curvature that it's needed to have your genetics play a major part in it of how your chest is going to shape. But you can actually shape your chest better with free weights, and that's where you're going to get the actual shape of the muscle is from the free weight training.
Right. I feel like the free weights give you a little bit more range of motion. They kind of let you like put your hands at better angles for your body, whereas like the barbell really like locks you into one position. And depending on your arm length and stuff, you might not be able to get as much of a stretch in your pecs, just stuff like that. Like, I don't know if you agree, but
no, you're right. It does. It plays a major factor. There's tweaking of the wrists, like wrist position when you're pressing up. Like when you come up, you can press the wrist like this, and you'll feel more of a pinch in here and in here. And I mean, just there's so much more with free weights that that give you that extra edge to shape a muscle and sculpt a muscle, just like an artist.
Yes, and I have also another advice. Like I totally agree with the dumbbell moves. I use mostly dumbbell. Barbells for me is just to, you know, really to increase strength.
Right.
But if you want to train the muscle size and shape, especially the shape, dumbbells would be definitely one thing I would go to. I would also, I would say I've realized a lot of us who doesn't grow our chest is because we uses our triceps and, you know, and our front delts a lot, and we are not very conscious about it. So I would always start with, you know, really low, light weights with, let's say, dumbbells, and then make sure you're really contracting that muscle instead of just, you know, just pushing or pulling, right? Just pushing it. So you want to be able to really feel that contraction of the pec muscle in order to really, you know, activate the muscle itself instead of the shoulders or your triceps. And so I think, you know, starting with lower weights, and then I would also use for me, I use a lot of like my chest training always starts with machines and ends with machines. Starting with machines, the good thing is you don't need that much mobility. And then, you know, it can help warm up, you know, your chest a little bit. I would always pick a favorite chest machine, whether it's an incline or a, you know, a flat bench, you know, or, you know, whatever. And then start with light weights and then eventually move up. And then my major moves of that day would often be the second or the third movements. You know, it could be a heavy, you know, a more heavy dumbbell press, or as you said, you know, a press, but incorporate with a little bit of the outward turn of your wrist so that it has more stimulation to the inner pecs as well. So, and then I will always end my pec workout with a machine as well. So that, you know, because at the end of your workout, you're already tired. You're not going to do barbells, heavy weight anyway. So I think that might help to stimulate, but, you know, be more aware of whether you are using your shoulders or your triceps to compensate, right? Those heavy weights.
It sounds like mind muscle connection with your pecs is really important for both of you, like for chest growth. So really feeling your pecs actually moving the weight. So I kind of relate to what Sam was saying. I struggle to feel my pecs a lot. It's probably the worst kind of mind muscle connection that I have with my body. Are there any tips you guys have for just like how to sort of engage your pecs? Like I'll like bench, you know, with 40-pound dumbbells in each hand, and I'm like maxing out, repping out, and I still am like struggling to feel my pecs like doing the work. So do you have any tips for that kind of mind muscle connection with your pecs?
For me, my connection I use if I'm having a workout like that, what I will do is I will actually slow my rep down slower as I'm performing a rep. I will actually slow it down and do on the way up, and then do a negative resistance on the way down.
Wow.
And while I'm doing that, I really mentally focus on where the blood's going and focus on that chest and try to feel that pull in the chest. Really feel that pull. There's certain muscle. I just feel like there's mind and muscle connection a lot that people don't use, and they don't realize it's there. And so it's like that's one of my things. I slow the rep down and really focus on the chest, keep it in my mind the whole time I'm working it, and slow that rep down on the way up, and then fight it on the way down like a negative resistance. And after about 3 of them, I promise you it gets engaged really quick.
Yeah, I think time under tension will be one way, right? As you said. Another way that I like to use with like people who have poor connection with certain body parts is that I would ask them to either save an IG story or an IG video or a video on YouTube that is someone that, you know, usually a bodybuilder that they like, you know, that they do their chest workout or a picture of their chest. Because a lot of times I think, and then that works, you know, particularly well with back muscles because we cannot see our back. So, you know, being able to see the whole map of the back muscle and then have them imagine, you know, we can only imagine on those bodies that already have those muscles, right? I mean, so it's very hard to imagine on ourselves. And especially if we have still, you know, a certain degree of like, body discomfort, right, towards our chest or whatever, we hardly really, think about our own chest, for example. So I would advise like my friends and students to actually, find a bodybuilder that you like, and then capture, a video of them that they're training chest or something, that you can really see the pec muscle moving. And I would have them actually watch it right before they do the chest move out that they have to do. And I think, and then have them, when they do it, imagine that person's chest instead of your own chest.
That's awesome. That is, I actually, I was about to say, I've done that actually with Arnold Schwarzenegger from the clips from the movie Pumping Iron, where he's doing like the butterflies and stuff like that. And you see the chest striation start pulling across the chest. And it's like, I've watched that and then mimicked those actual movements and felt the same pulls like that.
Yeah, so I think it does work, and it works particularly well on those muscles that you cannot connect with. Usually it's back muscles. Yeah, but I think, that also would work on chest muscles if you have a poor connection with it.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. Thank you. We did have another question that just dropped in the comments too. What ab workouts are your go-to to strengthen your core? I guess so, not to like actually build your abs necessarily aesthetically. It says just to strengthen your core. So that's the assumption I'm going off of.
For me, I do a lot of knee lifts. Like I'll do hanging knee lifts and like bring the knees up and roll the butt like 2 to 4 inches up and bring the knees up as high as I can bring them, and then bring them back down. And I do it in a slow form on the, I'll bring it up pretty routine, but when I bring them down, I bring them down slow and let it pull the stomach, and it tightens everything up from the top of my abs all the way down into the lower abs, extremely into the lower abs. But I like doing stuff like that. And then my other go-to would be like getting on a machine and doing the rotation, but I do it with a lighter weight where I don't thicken my waistline up. And I really focus on the obliques, feeling the obliques actually grind, and feel that grind and burn in them. Right. Those are my main two things I love to do right there for my abs.
Yeah, I love doing hanging leg raise as well. And if you cannot do it, you can do it with an assistant bench, right? With your hanging leg raise. I think that would definitely, and then I think one advice of that is to really restrain using your leg to come up. Instead, you have to really imagine you are using your ab muscle to, imagine that, that ab muscle to bring your legs up. So a lot of times I see people, just bring their legs up because they use their leg muscle to bring themselves up instead of using that ab muscle. So, hanging leg raise or assisted leg raises would help. Another go-to for me is to put on a decline bench. And then I would like draw on the decline bench, and then I would hold a big yoga ball on my legs, and then it would just go up and down. So it's another kind of hanging leg raise. But for me, that one was also a lot. So the yoga ball itself is not super heavy. So it's not really about training muscle itself, but it can strengthen the core muscle. It's the core muscle by, you can first go up, and then you can twist, and then play around with the yoga ball. And I think that are the two to-goes for me.
Yeah, and I think in regards to like, if you struggle to, like you said, you have to really make sure that you're using your abs to control, right, the movement. I used to struggle with that a lot with hanging leg raises, and I would do what Josey basically described, which is I would like kick my legs up, and I would struggle to feel my abs on the way up. Because it's weaker on the way up, right? But on the way down, I would really contract at the top and like basically use my abs to resist on the way down, to really like slow it down and make sure that it was my abs controlling my legs on the way down. And so by getting good at the eccentric portion, the way down, eventually I was able to really use my abs on the way up as well. So that's just my little, because I know a lot of people really struggle with hanging leg raises and like feeling your abs doing them and not your legs. So,
or for me, like, the most difficult thing about hanging leg raise is that I have to hang it. I have to hang myself. And I think
the grip strength.
My grips are so weak. It was like, it is so tired. And I feel like I'm using my back more than my abs.
Yeah.
So it does take
I always
time.
use the little things to put my arms in. I always use those little things to put my arms in and help me support me.
Yeah.
That way I don't cheat. That way I don't cheat. And I keep using my stomach because I get so tired from hanging that it hurts my shoulders, and I use my back and everything too.
Yeah, I feel that shit. Well, that's all the questions that we really have. So I don't know if Sufang, if you have anything else that you want to ask, but I think we're pretty much good.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thank you. No, I just want to say thank y'all for having me on here. It's an honor, and I look forward to seeing everybody in Atlanta again. And I love coming down. I'm so excited. I love the area. I love the people there. I love all of you all. And I thank y'all for accepting me, loving me, and having me on here and at the show. And like I said, I'm excited about coming back this year. And I want to say, if anybody's considering bodybuilding, if you're on the line of wanting to do a show, this is the one to do. This is the one that you need to get your feet wet in. Especially, I'm telling you right now, you won't regret it, and it's gonna change. It's gonna change your life. It really will. It'll change your whole perspective and your whole outlook on the sport and everything in your life.
Yeah, and so once again, you know, advertising time. You know, our competition will be held on November 18th, both for bodybuilding and powerlifting. So if you are like weightlifting, you know, if you're a powerlifter here, you know, we are also having this powerlifting meet on the same day, November 18th. You know, and we also hope that you will also sign up for a membership. You know, whether you compete or not, because like every dollar that you help us would actually help us to sustain the federation, our organization, and making sure that we can organize, you know, and organize the competition and ensure a safe space every year for folks, for you folks to, you know, to come join us. And so, you know, we need everything that, you know, we need everything that, you know, that you can offer to us, like, you know, volunteering, you know, being a member, you know, being a spectator, and competing with us. So that everything would be important to us, and, you know, means a lot to us as well. So Nat, do you want to like tell our audiences a little bit about what we're going to have for our next Fireside Chat?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, we're super excited because the month of June was basically for us to have conversations with two incredible trans women. So today we had a great chat with Josey about being a trans female bodybuilder. And then our next Fireside Chat is going to be with Angel Flores, I believe is her last name, who was featured on Queer Eye. And who's a competitive powerlifter. And so we're going to have a great conversation with her as well about being a competitive powerlifter as a trans woman, and kind of what she's doing right now with competitive powerlifting as well. So yeah, that's going to be our next Fireside Chat, and I believe it's going to be next week on Thursday, right, Sufang? Next Thursday?
Yeah, I think so. 29th, I think.
Yeah, the 29th, yeah, on Thursday. So keep an eye out for a post. It's going to have the exact time, but that's going to be our next Fireside Chat. And we just want to say thank you again to Josey. I mean, it was just so awesome to have you. I've been wanting to have this interview with you like for years, so I'm just so glad that we finally have like this platform that we can actually use to make it happen and
thank you.
Have this chat. So just thanks for your time and for being so vulnerable with us.
Thank you.
That means everything.
Like I said, I'm an open book anytime.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know if there's anything. Did I forget anything, Sufang?
No, we are good. So we'll stay tuned to our next Fireside Chat. And thank you so much, you know, for tuning in and, you know, staying with us today. We will also upload this Fireside Chat on our Instagram. So if you have not followed our Instagram, IATBP.official, you know, please follow us and, you know, stay tuned for our next one. Thank you so much all for being here.
Yeah,
and thank you, Josey, so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank
Love
you.
you guys. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.